Hello, and welcome to Look Both Ways with David and Wes, pragmatic conversations about all things transportation. We are recording via live stream, so welcome to everyone who is following along on YouTube Live, but we're also glad to have you if you're watching or listening later on. My name is David Zipper, and I am joined, as always, by my partner in crime.
I am Wes Marshall.
Yes, and we are in our respective homes of Washington, D.C. and Denver, Colorado this time. Is it raining out there? It looks dark.
No, that's just the shade. I'm in my office, but that's the sun is sunny in Denver, and the sun comes right in my window in the morning, so the shade's just always down.
That's fair enough. The sun is very bright in Denver. I found that out when I was there recently. Got a nice sunburn. So we have much to discuss today. We're going to be talking a lot about bike safety, and we're going to take some questions from you, our beloved listeners. But first, I thought, we always like to sort of get warmed up a little with a fun little question. And since we're talking a lot about biking today, I thought Wes is already smirking. It's like he's bracing.
No, I'm just remembering talking about Fabio and stuff last time.
Oh God, we got Fabio. We've got a streak of two episodes now of talking about.
Laughing in my head at how we went off the rails a little bit, but yeah, go ahead. What's your question this week?
No, I'm going to keep it straight and narrow. We're not talking about 1990s romance models. I just want to ask about biking. Is there a bike ride you've always fantasized about taking, but you've never had a chance to do yet?
No, because I'm not really a recreational biker. I'm a utilitarian biker. Like I bike to go places. Like I bike.
You don't enjoy a pretty bike ride?
I do, really? But I don't really go out of my way to do that kind of stuff. Like there's other hobbies I'd probably rather do than biking. I mean, in part because I bike so much in my day-to-day life already that when the weekend comes, I don't really sort of jump on my bike often just for the sake of the bike ride. Like if I have to go someplace, I do, but I don't know. I mean, there's,
well, you live in a part of the country that's famous for its beautiful bike rides. So if you don't like biking in Colorado, I guess you're not into at least natural biking.
I do remember I was in Whistler for a conference and doing the downhill mountain biking, and you take the chairlift up with your bike and. Yeah, you're almost in full body armor going down, and you're not pedaling, but it's so tiring and so fun. So I feel like I could or should do more of that. I think last summer we went up to the top of Mount Blue Sky, so the mountain formerly known as Mount Evans, and it's the highest paved peak. It's 14,000 plus feet, and there was a ton of bicyclists just flying down that hill, and that also looked kind of fun. But I guess
so. You like the idea of downhill biking?
Yeah,
it's a good workout.
It's a good workout getting to the top. I mean, I'm sure some of those people you got to ride to the top and then bike down. But if you're going to bike to the top, that's one thing.
But if you go to this is interesting. I did not know this side of you. So if you go to a city you've not been to before, you don't welcome or seek out an opportunity to find a bike and explore it that way?
I do, but I just will explore the city. I'll get on a bike, and that's how I see cities. I don't have a particular ride. Like I'm not doing, a certain ride down the California coastline that I have, or those people that go from state to state up and down whatever trail. Like that's not sort of the kind of thing I'm into. I
see.
But if I go to some city, I love jumping on a bike. That's the way I love seeing cities. Because walking, you're a little bit too slow to really see the city. Driving, you get a windshield bias, and transit, you don't really get the same feel. But on a bike, I really get a sense of these places, and I can understand how transportation works or doesn't work in places. So that's how I often use bicycling when I'm in other cities. Like when I was on sabbatical in Sydney, Australia, I learned so much about the city just in my commute back and forth to my office at University of Sydney. And I explore that way.
But like when I went to I'm going to be a little cliched among urbanists now and talk about how I went to Utrecht in the Netherlands and biked around Utrecht, which everybody sort of goes crazy about in urbanist circles. It's like a biking mecca, but it is for a good reason. It's just beautiful to bike through. The paths are easy and clear, and it's a very attractive town with a river running through it and a beautiful old city. Or old town, I forget what it's exactly called, but that was a very pleasant way to explore a city. And it was a bike ride that, although it wasn't really utilitarian, was just, I guess it was kind of utilitarian, I should say. But I just found it very pleasurable. There's not a city you remember exploring by bike that you just really enjoyed riding around in?
Oh, there's so many cities, and there's so many cities I would like to do that on. But I mean,
Okay.
there are, sort of famous mountain bike tours, like Ride the Rockies or the
Yeah,
five
sure.
borough bike ride in Manhattan. Like there are people that do those kind of tours. That's what I sort of thought you meant at first. And then, some of those might be fun, but I don't tend to do that kind of stuff. Like, is there a particular one you have in mind for this?
Well, I would have been happy if you'd said, look, I've always wanted to explore the Barcelona superblocks by bike. That would be a valid answer, but you didn't say that.
That is a city I'd love to explore by bike or not by bike. It doesn't matter. I want to explore that city either way, and biking would be great.
It's a great way to do it. I've done that actually. And Jordy, if you're listening, he's a listener I know in Barcelona. If you can find a way to get Wes out, he would love to do a bike ride with you. Jordy gave me a bike tour of Barcelona last year. But no, actually, for me, it's more along the lines probably of what you had in mind. I've always sort of been intrigued by, I feel like an underappreciated country for biking, honestly, is Belgium. I don't know if you so much time in Belgium, but it's got great bike lanes and a lot of actually a high bike mode share too.
Yeah,
why are you
but
making a face?
because we just lost to Belgium in soccer last night. So
Yeah, I know. So,
I'm
I
sort of
want to move
mad.
past
Like,
that.
I don't want any waffles. I don't want to talk about Belgium.
You want chocolate.
Yeah.
You don't want to watch any Jean-Claude Van Damme movies.
No,
None of that.
You picked the
None of
wrong day
that.
to talk about Belgium. Like, I'm out. I don't
You
want to
know
go to
what?
Belgium.
Honestly, after what Trump did with like meddling with FIFA, I'm fine with it. I was sad we lost, but I know the world is happy, and I kind of understand why the world is happy. So I'm moving on.
Oh God! God
And,
forbid FIFA does something a little bit suspect. Like they haven't been
Yeah,
doing
seriously.
that in favor of Europe for like 100+ years. Like really?
Oh, they weren't doing anything in favor of you. They were doing in favor of us.
I know now they were finally like they've done it in favor of Europe for decades and decades. All of a sudden, Europe's like, hey, wait, like that's for them, and now there's a big uproar because something
I don't know.
kind of
I'm
dicey
kind
happened.
of on Team Europe on this one. I thought it was kind of BS.
It
But
should
anyway,
not have been a red card in the first place. That was
oh my
bogus.
God.
And that,
See, this is what happened. I mentioned the sports ball and you're off and running. I'm going to bring it back to Belgium because I was saying like it has much better bike infrastructure than many people realize. And there's ways it's also a small country.
Yep.
So there are ways of doing these like sort of leisurely bike tours, relatively flat, to basically go from these like monk monasteries that all make fantastic Belgian beer. So you're just sort of like biking from place to place, having great beer, staying at like B&Bs. It just sounds delightful to me. And I know that people love to talk about biking in the Netherlands and in places like I've heard a lot about Sweden, and I'm sure that's great, but I actually would love to find a way to drink Belgian beer and bike. It just sounds very pleasant to me.
yeah, today I just don't want a Belgian beer, so I'm not going to have one. But in general, I do love biking from like brewery to brewery. I've done that a handful of times over the years, and that is always fun. Like I might have mentioned this on the podcast before, when I did this in Australia with my friend who is blind. Darren has a tandem bike, and he put me on the front of this tandem bike in like downtown Sydney, and we're biking around, and he's trying to direct me to these brew pubs, even though
Yeah.
he's blind, and that was tough but fun. We had a good time.
I feel like it would be fun. I do know a good Belgian beer joke that my friend Sien, who is from Antwerp, told me.
Let's hear it.
It's more of a statement than I guess like a question type joke. But basically, what happens is Belgian beer is really really good, and then but eventually you have to go to the bathroom, and Heineken comes out. The Dutch Belgian rivalry is just makes me happy.
Yeah.
They just love to make fun of each other. It's great. And the Belgians actually are right about this. Their food is better. Have you had Dutch food? It's awful. The Belgians at least have mussels, and they've got chocolate, they've got waffles, and they've got beer. So, I think that's what they play.
Yeah, maybe the word good isn't the right descriptor word for that joke, but it was a joke.
I'll just go with it. All right. Should we move on?
Yes.
Or try to?
Yes.
Okay. So
Word
now
on the street.
Word on the street. This is the part of the podcast where we talk about a transportation issue that is in the news. And this time we'll be talking about a sort of emerging technology that could help keep bike lanes clear. And I personally think it's a pretty cool opportunity. So I think, the context and all of this, I think it's important to get it out there is that the US has been going in the wrong direction with bike safety for quite a while now. The most recent data that we have is from 2024 around crash deaths. And in that year, 1,116 people died while biking in the US, which is an all time record in this country. So, bike safety is a growing problem. And there's lots of research that shows that bike lanes, really protected bike lanes, can help. But to be useful, to really be successful in providing that sort of safe space where cyclists can be separated from fast moving, much heavier cars, the bike lane has to be clear. And that's obviously a problem because lots of cars end up blocking bike lanes because it's convenient. It saves time often if there's not a parking spot that's easily available, and the likelihood of getting a ticket is relatively low because the police are unlikely to see it happen if it's just a minute or so, and even if they do see it, they're probably not going to issue a ticket. So this is a problem. But as of a week ago, literally a week ago, Santa Monica has adopted what I think is a pretty cool and interesting approach to addressing this problem of cars in bike lanes. They are now using automatic cameras that are installed on city vehicles. I don't know exactly what city vehicles they are, but it could be buses, it could be garbage trucks, it could be anything that are going to take pictures of automobiles that are in the bike lane, snap a picture of their license plate. They're working with Hayden AI to do this, by the way, a company that does a lot of work with automatic cameras in bus lanes. And if it's confirmed that a car was in a bike lane, then they automatically get a $93 fine. That fine is mailed to the car owner. And Santa Monica is not the first city to do this. Pittsburgh already does it. Chicago has experimented with it. There's actually been discussion even in New York City of doing it. I interviewed Zoran Mamdani about it several years ago when he was pushing for it in the state legislature in New York. Didn't ultimately happen, but Mamdani's been a big fan. So my view is this is actually one of the few really great use cases of AI that I can see. But that's just my view. What do you think, Wes?
It sounds good, and I mean,
don't go too far.
I think my thinking too is a lot of times like the underlying problem is often like we're not pricing parking right. Like so, all the parking spaces are full. Therefore, somebody needs to stop for a second so they don't have a space on the street, so they have to park somewhere else, and it's often in the bike lane. So if we had followed Donald Shoup's advice and price the parking so there's always one or two empty spaces on every block, like maybe this would be less of a problem. But given that we don't do that very well, it is a problem. And something I see almost every day when I bike to and from work. And Denver, Colorado, this actually won't be a law that you can't block a bike lane until next month. They just passed it. It's August 12th. It becomes a law in Colorado that you can no longer block a bike lane. And in Denver, until a few years ago, there was a rule against double parking. There was a rule against driving in a bike lane, but there weren't any laws until 2022 about parking in a bike lane.
Yeah, that's actually something that I learned relatively recently for a story that I'm working on, hasn't come out yet, that relates to these sorts of topics. It's surprising to me how few states make it clear that it's illegal for a car to enter a bike lane unless it's, they're trying to park in a legal spot or making a turn. It's just sort of a gray area in lots of states. Either there's nothing said about it at all, or maybe it's something saying don't do it, but the penalty is not clear. So you can't actually penalize the infraction with a fine.
So I do think half of it is sort of we don't price the parking right, but the other half could be designed too. A lot of these protected bike lanes aren't designed in a way that people understand that they're not supposed to be there in a car. So I think we need to do a better job on both of those fronts. But even still, like,
You
I
think
don't.
so? I don't know, man. I think you're being pretty generous to car drivers if you say they don't know that they're not supposed to be in a bike lane. I think
I
they know. They're doing a cost benefit calculation, and they know they're
No,
not
I
going to get
mean,
a
so we
ticket.
have a lot of parking protected bike lanes here in Denver where people, like, if that block doesn't have a lot of cars parked in it at the time, people park in the bike lane thinking that's where they're supposed to park, not realizing they're supposed to be parking about 7 feet to the left in where the parking spaces are. So it is confusing as to where they should be. It's
Hmm.
not always somebody being like, hey, I need to run this in and run this out. I mean, and there is some of that. I mean, UPS, FedEx, like they put it in their budget there to get tons of tickets for this sort of stuff. And
And they get a discount for it, which I just find unconscionable. By the way, have we talked
yeah,
about this?
they group. We haven't talked about that particular thing, but they do. They aggregate them and pay them off in one fell swoop at a discount.
Yeah, which by the way, if you want to get just every time I think about this, I get angry. The idea that hey, look, you violate a traffic law like parking in a crosswalk or violating a bike lane, you pay a fee. But look, if you do it a whole lot, we'll
Yeah,
give you a discount. What is the logic behind that? And that, by the way, is very normal for municipalities to create these kinds of deals with UPS or FedEx or whatever, which to me is insane. If you keep doing something bad, you should actually have an additional penalty, not get a discount from it.
you're right.
So,
You're right. It should increase in, I mean, like a red card. Like, um, but in this case, I think the big picture, this is a safety issue for bicyclists. Like,
yeah,
for me being forced into traffic, I can deal with that, but not everybody can. And we'll talk about that a little bit in our roundabout. I mean, level of traffic stress and how different types of bicyclists are comfortable doing different sorts of things. But whether it's a safety issue or not, a lot of people stop biking because of it too. So it changes
yeah.
behaviors because all of a sudden, like what should be a comfortable and low stress facility ends up being one that feels dangerous.
Yeah, so that's actually a place where I think I will give drivers a little bit of like I'll let them off the hook a little bit. I do think that drivers know they're not supposed to be in a bike lane, but my hypothesis or my belief just from observation is that a lot of drivers just think it's not a big deal if they need to pick somebody up or they need to like, just check a map or something to pull over into the bike lane, put your flashers on and be there for a minute or two because they assume, well, not only am I unlikely to get a ticket, but if a cyclist does come along, they can just go around me. It's not a huge deal. And they don't realize that a cyclist entering a general traffic lane is at best going to be uncomfortable doing so. And at worst, they could be in a lot of potential risk. And if this happens relatively frequently, then to your point, Wes, it's actually a pretty powerful deterrent from people even trying to bike because it doesn't feel comfortable. And there's a lot of evidence in particular that women need to feel safe in order to begin becoming regular bike travelers. So I think that that's a place where there could be some valuable education. In the course of doing some research recently, I was looking at what I think is actually a pretty cool little activist campaign in San Francisco. I don't know if you saw this, Wes. This was on Valencia Street. Do you know
I
Valencia
do.
in San Francisco? So this was like 7 years ago, and I believe Valencia may have been redesigned since then. I think it was, but at the time, Valencia had cars entering bike lanes to pause all the time, Uber, Lyft, personal cars, whatever. So some activists, I think with Safe Streets Rebel, which is sort of a well-known San Francisco activist group, they gathered there with a bunch of signs, and then they would wait until a car entered the bike lane and put it like just to pause and do something. And then the activists would run out into the traffic lane, like where the cars are, and stop the cars and hold up signs saying, just a minute, just hold on. Oh, so sorry. And just wait until whoever it was got back in their car and left. And then they would leave and go back to the sidewalk. And if someone came along on a bike and wasn't sure what to do, they would just beckon the bicyclist through, which is just trying to point out, look, there's a double standard going on
Oh
here
yeah.
where car drivers feel totally fine blocking a bike lane, but they would never dream of doing so, of someone doing so on on a car lane. They'd lose their minds. I thought it was actually a pretty smart campaign. It got some press coverage, and I frankly wouldn't mind seeing activists in other cities take it up.
Oh, lose their minds is the exact right phrase for that, because drivers would lose their mind if I just
Totally.
parked my bike in a car lane and like walked in to deliver something for 5 minutes and walk back out. Like,
Yeah. And they do it all the time to a bike lane. It's just
Right,
a double
so
standard.
this is something I think we can solve through some of the ways I listed, like parking pricing correctly and design. At the same time, like what Santa Monica and was it Pittsburgh are doing.
Yeah, Pittsburgh does it. Yeah.
It's great, and we probably need more of this. I mean, I think there's going to be some pushback, as there is whenever sort of camera stuff comes into the world. But I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard of many cities talking about doing it. I mean, you mentioned New York City as well, but I mean, they still haven't started doing it either. You interviewed them about this years ago, right?
No, I don't think New York City's doing it yet. Usually the way this works is that a city that wants to do it has to get express permission from the state, because state legislatures usually circumscribe pretty tightly what local governments can use cameras for to impose tickets on. And so some state, I think you got to permission that way, and then you can do it. And there's been, for the last few years, I think some listeners are going to be aware of a sort of growing attention, I would say even excitement, about camera enforcement of bus lanes, which are enabling bus lanes to actually fulfill their stated purpose of enabling those inside of a bus to travel faster on a reliable schedule to their destination. And New York has been doing those for a while. A bunch of other cities like Oakland and San Francisco, I believe, but definitely LA have been using them too. And what's great about those cameras is that they have a deterrent effect. In New York, like 2/3 of people that get a ticket in the mail don't get a second one. At least that was the data as of a couple of years ago, which is great. It shows that people are just stopping doing the bad behavior. And my hope is that that's what happens with the bike lane camera work as well. Like, this shouldn't be a revenue opportunity, which is often what like traffic cameras are treated as, or they're seen as by drivers. It shouldn't be that way. It should be a way of making sure that your roadway network is safe.
I do remember, it's probably 10 years ago, where Denver made the law where you had to yield to the bus that was merging back into traffic. And every bus would have a little thing like, you must yield for the bus. And there are some places, like you said, that are doing cameras with that same sort of thing as well. Because when the bus is sitting there, like waiting for all the cars to pass, it sort of takes away the advantage of what the bus should have anyways.
No, it negates the bus lane. It negates a bike lane if you've got lots of cars blocking it.
Yes,
I'm sure people who listen to this will understand the point immediately. Like, if you bike over a half a mile on a bike lane and like 4 different times you have to veer into general traffic lane, that bike lane might as well not exist. It's not providing you with upgraded safety, I would argue.
So when you mentioned this as a topic, and you put it down in our notes, and you talked about the rise in bicyclist fatalities, like instead of going down the rabbit holes in the cameras, I ended up like digging into that sort of stuff and like why bicyclist deaths have been up. And one of the things I found, and I knew this to some extent, but we shifted e-bikes from motorcycles to being what they called pedal cyclists in the FARS data in 2022. So e-bike deaths were not counted as part of bike deaths until 2022, and now they are. And that's one of the reasons bike fatalities have gone up and motorcycle fatalities actually stayed flat after 2022.
That's interesting. Of course, you and I both know that there's lots of gradations between e-bike and motorcycle.
Well, they still don't count e-scooters or stuff like that. That would be under like other personal conveyance vehicles.
Well,
or something
but like
mopeds,
mopeds,
yeah,
go.
Those would probably be under motorcycles, or they would not be under bicycle, I don't think. I
don't know.
I was looking
Police seem not to know what to do with them, so I don't know how much I trust the data.
But even in the current data, there is no distinction between an e-bike and a traditional analog acoustic bike. Right? But New York has that data. Like, so last year, I think they only had 3 traditional bike deaths, which is their lowest ever, but they had something like 18 e-bike deaths. So the number of total bike deaths isn't changing that much, but the number of traditional bike type deaths is as low as it's ever been.
I'm interested in those findings. I guess I question the validity, or I'm skeptical because there's so much gray area around what is and is not an e-bike. You know
Yeah.
this.
No, it's
Like
tough.
people have
And
souped up their e-bikes and they're getting things that are really mopeds that are the police think are e-bikes. The media gets it wrong. It's
well,
a real mess.
that head-on collision that was on the bridge,
That was
yeah,
truly horrific.
truly horrific. But I mean, one was a traditional pedal bike, and the other was an e-bike, but it went like
no. It was a scooter.
But
it was a scooter.
I thought but it went like 60 miles an hour. It was a fast.
I follow this because it was so upsetting because I know exactly where it took place. There was one person who was on a carbon bike without any sort of electrification at all, going downhill, I believe, and then going uphill was somebody who had a really souped up, like hardened scooter that can reach like 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Like a rugged, weird thing. And they just smacked into each other at full speed, and the carbon bike broke in two, and they're both killed. Really upsetting stuff.
I mean, so I mean, we talked about crash data last time around, but this is the sort of thing that would really help us understand like the safety impacts of people blocking the bike lane, because there aren't any studies on that I've ever seen, because it's hard to study that. And understanding how e-bikes
aren't any studies on what exactly?
I mean, we talked about people blocking the bike lane. Like, I don't know of any safety studies saying if that's bad or not. Or is it going to be worse with e-bikes or not as bad? I mean, all that sort of stuff. Like, it's hard to wrap our heads around with any numbers. It's just like, hey, as a bicyclist, this sucks. And that's all we can really say. And we can say that it's probably even worse for maybe women or for kids or people that aren't as comfortable on bikes. But
there's lots of studies that I believe that if my memory serves, that basically show that infractions in bike lanes are far, far lower when a bike lane is hardened with some sort of barrier between the bike lane and the general traffic lane, as opposed to paint, right? So we know that. But I've not seen any studies about like what camera-based enforcement does to infractions.
No, some students in one of my classes, my tactical urbanism project that I had them do, they took a buffered bike lane that was just paint, and they made it into basically like a protected bike lane with cones along the whole stretch, and it went from like 60 cars per hour using the bike lane as a car lane down to 1.
Yeah, it's funny, like even a little bit, like a cone they obviously could drive over, but they don't. So anyway, we will, I don't know. I actually have another topic that relates to this I'd love to get back to. So we may not be done with bike lanes for long, but I think we should maybe put it aside for now. We're never done with bike lanes. Never done with bike. How could you be? God, what a nerdy statement. But moving on, it's time for Roundabout. This is where Wes and I just sort of pick a topic that we feel is worthwhile to discuss. I'm going to forgo mine this episode because I want to get to your questions. But Wes, you have a topic for us that again relates to bike safety.
I do. So a couple weeks ago, so this was on Bike to Work Day here in Denver, I put out a survey about bicycle level of traffic stress at intersections. And I didn't do it as sort of some grand symbolic thing on Bike to Work Day. It was literally because our IRB approved the survey that day. So I was like, oh, great, perfect, I'll put it out. So I think, as we know, biking as transportation can be great, like maybe until you get to a bike lane where there's a car parked in it, or until you get to an intersection and the bike lane basically just says like, this concludes the supported portion of your journey. So the survey is really trying to get at not just whether a street has a bike lane, but whether the intersection actually works for somebody on a bike, and is trying to connect people's stress levels to what they're going through. And I guess a little bit of history here. So most people who maybe work in the planning or engineering fields know the idea of level of traffic stress, or bicycle level of traffic stress, LTS. This is Peter Firth at Northeastern's work, and I think part of what Peter did with his work was not just give us a framework that provided another engineering score, because we had a lot of those for bicycling through the years. It connected street conditions to actual types of bicyclists. So Roger Geller, I believe, he was in Portland. He came up with that Portland bicyclist typology where they had the 4 types of bicyclists: the strong and fearless, the enthused and confident, the interested but concerned, and the no way, no how. And I think the genius of what Peter did is he connected this bike stress with those different rankings and typologies where the question shifted to, like, who does this street actually serve? And as I was thinking about this, I actually found a 2005 term paper I wrote on sort of the history of measuring bike lanes and bike level of service and stuff. And it was fascinating to flip through that and see sort of how badly we did it. Like the early days was really about using these sort of methodologies to assess demand, like how many bicyclists will use this sort of facility so we can use those in our demand models. There was actually a stress related one back in the 1994. I can't remember what the authors' names were. I jotted them down here somewhere, but it didn't really catch on because it didn't really connect with the people and the typology thing that Peter did. They're all really transportation engineering focused, and it didn't really answer the question, like, does it feel okay for a normal person to bike? And then there was one line in my old term paper that said, the movement of bicycles through intersections is also a critical factor that is largely ignored in all those methods. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, I said that in 2005, and it's still the case today. So 20 years later, like, we're still talking about low stress bike networks in a way that needs to be done better. And Peter's work gave us a really useful framework, but even Peter will tell you that it ignores intersections. And I'm actually on a research team with Peter and Nick Ferenchek, my former student at the University of New Mexico, and Chris Cherry, University of Tennessee, to add intersections to it because intersections are still the weak spot. So we put out this survey to really understand that. And I don't know, you mentioned transportation nerds at the beginning. Like, am I being too much of a transportation nerd here, or is this...
And one way to find out, what are you looking for in the survey? Who should be filling out the survey?
Anyone that bicycles. I mean, really, you can go to I'll put it on our show notes, but it's also on my Blue Sky account. It's pinned at the top. It's a link to the survey. And I tried to do it in a way that's fun. So my student Sneha and I put together a survey where we took some videos. Some students in my class made some videos of different types of intersections with different levels of infrastructure, different types of, like, number of lanes, all these different factors. And we show that video, and he basically asked people that watch the video, like, how would they feel going through an intersection like this? Would they feel stressed? Would they not feel stressed? I quibble with Peter Firth about this, but he kind of just wants to forge ahead and be like, this is less stressful, this is more stressful. And I'm like, well, let's ask people. Let's validate it a little bit. And that's what the survey is really trying to do, is get people to tell us what they feel stress on, but also give us some insight as to what type of bicyclist they are. Like, where are they on the typology? And then we can connect the dots and really do a better job of designing our bike infrastructure in a way. I mean, because one of the great visuals that came out of Peter's work is that if you were sort of an interested but concerned bicyclist and you need a low level of stress as you bicycle, you can map where you're cordoned off to these little islands. And you're stuck there because the bike infrastructure is high stress between this island and that island. So even though you have these nice little islands all over the place that are low stress, we haven't connected the dots. This takes it a step further and adds intersections to it, because just because you have a great bike lane on this segment and the segment across the street, if you can't get across there low stress, it kind of ruins the whole thing. So this is what I'm hoping this survey will get people to tell us about, and we can really put some numbers and, personality to the work.
I guess I have a couple of questions. One is, I'm wondering how you think about children in this context, because I can imagine someone could say, oh, I feel very comfortable biking in this sort of environment if I'm by myself, but if I'm with my 8-year-old son, not a chance in hell.
Yeah, no, Nick and I actually have a paper that validated Peter's old work with kids. That was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. So that one was asking parents about where they would let their kids bike or not bike, and we connected it to the level of traffic stress. This particular survey, it's a lot harder to get a survey approved when you want to ask kids questions. So this is 18 plus, and we didn't ask the questions yet in a way that would ask parents about their kids. It's really for them as bicyclists. So that would be another step down the line. But you're exactly right. I mean, there are going to be differences on that front, and there should be.
Well, that was one question. The other thought that I had, or just something that you just reminded me of, is that I feel like in the 2010s, I kept hearing about or meeting people who were working on various apps that were designed to capture information about biking vibes that would be used somehow by city officials. There was one I remember where after a bike ride, it would prompt you to just give a smiley face or a frowny face or a neutral face. And it would know your route from GPS. So it could then basically figure out what are the sort of segments of the urban fabric that people get a lot of frowny faces over. And then the city could know, okay, that's where we need to focus on finding an improvement. I'm wondering if that is how you think of those sorts of data collection tactics compared to what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I remember some folks in DC doing that. I remember some folks in Atlanta doing it. And there's another kind of more connected to this little device you'd have on your bike. And they were trying to measure like how many times you're braking hard on your bike and stuff like that. It was called C-Sense, this company in Australia. And they were trying to look at stress. There was one company that was telling me they connected it to people's heart rate. And they were telling me that the high heart rate meant they were stressed. I was like, well, it could just mean they're biking hard. I couldn't really disconnect the two. Like there could be other personal data you could collect that would get at that. But with the stuff you're talking about, it could be useful. It is crowdsourced, and it's hard to disconnect, like if they're happy about the segment and not happy about the intersection or vice versa. Like,
yeah,
right. So there are some more details I'd want in terms of design. So I think that might be a good place to start. But the idea here is to get it to a place that is on the level of what we have for the level of traffic stress for segments that Peter and his group have put together.
Interesting. I guess what I'm just at a high level, I guess I would ask you the question that I think a lot of practitioners sort of mumble or grumble at me when I'm talking about these sorts of things, which is they say, honestly, and I'm paraphrasing what I hear from city officials who work in transportation, they say, honestly, David, I don't need any more frickin' quantitative or analytical frameworks for what is and is not a safe street or a safe infrastructure. I just need some political leaders with the courage to do what we already know needs to get done. This is a political question. It's not a knowledge question of how to get safe bike infrastructure.
To some extent. And you have groups like NACTO, they'll have slogans like "Don't stop at the intersection." And you see that all the time where you have a great bike lane, all of a sudden it disappears as you lead into the intersection. And there are reasons traffic engineers like to do that. And then, it comes back after you get across the street. Like this would give people a little bit of a better wherewithal to be able to put some numbers to that and basically show that this is not a complete bike network anymore. Just because you have a segment here and a segment there.
Yeah.
Like the old way we were doing it, it would seem like you actually do have a complete bike network, even though a bicyclist that goes through there would know full well that you don't. Like this would basically connect the dots, just like we need through that intersection. This would do it with, some validated data, hopefully, that will give people a better. And you're right. I mean, I think people have enough to work on, especially. I think it's less so for pedestrians. There's not as much to go on with pedestrian planning. I think you sort of know it and you can feel it, but there's less behind it. And biking is a little bit better, but I mean, nowhere near where we are with what we're doing for planning cars and trying to do that for 20 years into the future. Like we're not doing that for bicyclists by any means.
Yeah. Gosh, was it your article in Conversation that I just read this? I can't remember where I read it, where there was a gathering of city officials who were saying, like, for God's sake, I don't want any more data about cars and traffic. But when the conversation shifts to sidewalks, they're like, oh, I know nothing. I absolutely need better
Yeah,
data. That was you, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was one of
Um,
my old papers we did where we talked to 16 cities and they all were bragging to us about all the data they collect for their roadways. Like, oh, we have this company comes in once a year. They have a LiDAR. They drive every street in the city. We have like every nook and cranny. We know exactly where every pothole is. Our city says we'll fix your pothole within 24 hours. Our mayor brags about this. And then we asked the exact same set of questions about sidewalks, and they're all like, it's
don't know
complicated.
anything.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like bike lanes are sort of in the middle, perhaps, and closer to perhaps sidewalks than general traffic lanes. Maybe you feel differently.
No,
but I feel
they
like cities
are
know
because
something,
at least
but
most cities
not a lot.
take control. I mean, the sidewalk issue I was talking about in that article is that most cities put the onus on the adjacent property owner. Like most cities are like, this is not our problem. This is a you problem. At least with bike lanes, it's on their purview. So they are, in theory, supposed to be doing something about it. Not all of them are doing as much as maybe want.
And I'm not sure that they follow the level of service stuff as carefully with the bike lanes at all compared to what they do with their general traffic lanes, shall we say. but no, it's an important point, I think. Like wherever you are, if you're an American, the odds are high your city knows all about its road network for motor vehicles and knows something, not everything, about its bikes, and probably barely anything at all about its sidewalks is what I would assume. That's my starting point.
I will say there are still methods that engineers use that aren't like Peter's type method. They're using like bicycle level of service. And I know the next section is about questions, but one of our readers sent in a question from the 2024 Transportation Engineering Professional Engineering Exam Study Guide. And it was a picture of this like 2-lane highway, and they're basically trying to repurpose the shoulder into a bike lane. And the question is a multiple choice question. This is like, what should the speed limit be if you want to maintain a bicycle level of service C? And the options are 40, 50, 60, and 70 miles per hour. Like that's like the lowest is 40 miles per hour in an unprotected bike lane on a 2-lane highway. Like how could that possibly be? I mean, that's not a low stress facility whatsoever. But when you think about level service C from an engineering standpoint, it seems fine. Like, oh yeah, level service C, that's fine. And that is the way like a lot of places are still trying to design bikeways in that sort of mentality. So where we're trying to shift to is so much better.
I think that makes sense. I hope you get lots of people.
And did I mention who that was from? That was from a reader named Colin.
Yeah, I remember that.
I sent that in.
And so again, if people want to take your survey, they can find it where?
If they go to my Blue Sky account, there is a link. Right, it's my pinned. Tweet's not the word, but you know what I mean. Like the pin.
Skeet. Your skeet.
I like bleat.
Skeet.
Blue sky bleat.
It's not a bleat. That's not the right word.
I like bleat. Sorry.
Okay.
Skeet? Where does skeet come from?
That's the actual term, isn't it? That's
why? Why though?
I didn't make it up.
Like tweet makes sense. Decided. Twitter tweet. Blue sky bleat. Doesn't that make more sense than skeet?
Well, you sound like a sheep. I think the point is you're not sheep if you're on Blue Sky. You're an intellectual leader.
But that's and I know like Nick Ferenchek put it on his LinkedIn account, and so there are other ways you can find it. But I'll put it in the show notes. So if people are interested in taking it, like I said, it should be a fun little survey, and we'd be appreciative of your insight.
And show notes are available on the website for the podcast, lookbothwayspodcast.com. Let's go to mailbag. This is the part of the podcast where every once in a while we take questions from you, the audience. And if you have questions for us, we welcome it. You can ask them over email, lookbothwayspod@gmail.com, or online at our website where all of our podcasts are available, lookbothwayspodcast.com. So without further ado, I'll jump in. And the first question I wanted to ask is from Braden, who says that, I believe Braden is a she. So I'm going to say she was recently in conversation about local placemaking. And one of the metrics of success for local placemaking was increasing the percentage of women and children in the place concerned, like a public park, which got her wondering, how to increase the mode share on public transportation for so-called vulnerable groups, meaning women and children. When you're thinking about something beyond simply improving transit speed and frequency. So what can you do with transit to make it more useful and more popular among women and children? I think it's a great question. I have some thoughts. I'll kick it over to you first.
Oh, there's a lot of things you could do, should do. And I think that is, I mean, bigger picture, the way we should be rethinking our transit systems. Like,
Yeah,
we
I
don't
agree.
need transit systems to bring white collar workers downtown in the same way we used to. Like, there are different needs. And one of them is to provide for the sorts of trips that a lot of other folks are making, and including women and children. So bringing those trains or buses to different types of destinations, having higher frequency at the times when those sorts of folks might be out and needing those services.
Yeah. And
Making
trips do not involve downtown.
Yeah,
That's a big one,
right. It
right?
doesn't have to go downtown. It can go to like the children's museum or the zoo or the aquarium, like the park, with all sorts of stuff that we could have transit bring us to. It doesn't, and I think it could be also be more fun. Like, you see pictures of like trains in Sweden that have like playgrounds on a little one of the train cars or something. Like, we don't maybe need to take it to that extent, but there are things that could make our transit service a little bit more fun and more useful. I mean, big picture, that we should be doing that anyways. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're trying to kind
Yeah.
of get back to where we were, and I don't think that should be the goal anymore. Like, transit needs to be thought of differently.
No, I think, yeah, I'll just go a little bit further, push more on one point that you made, which is like historically, our public transit networks in the US really were designed to shepherd people, usually men, into the central business district downtown in the morning and bring them back out to the suburbs in the evening. And I think there's growing awareness now that all trips have been moving away from that kind of a model, but particularly for women, that kind of a design system didn't work well for them. Women take more chained trips, which means they're going from point to point to point to point before coming back home, and they're often doing caregiving. They are going to educational institutions or hospitals, and there's a much greater need of than we're really providing now for transit networks to serve places that are not downtown and to serve at off-peak hours. I think, and frankly, it's very tricky thinking of what this means for commuter rail, where you really have a whole system that really is designed around bringing people into downtown on weekdays and back out. But a lot of bus redesigns are along these lines. I think that's great. And I think it's really important. The other point I was just going to make for children is that I really think it's great to see, and this is what gets into young adults too, the emphasis that a lot of agencies place on providing free or deeply discounted transit passes for children and college students.
Yep.
Like SEPTA now is one of many now that offers like basically like super discounted, all you can eat transit passes for every student who's at a given college or university to get them sort of hooked on transit, or at the very least get them exposed to it so they don't become an adult who thinks transit is always terrible and unsafe.
And
That's a great thing to do.
Denver is free for 19 and under at the moment, which is a
That's
good
great.
thing too. And the other good thing that comes with that, like, I have 3 kids, and when my family would all want to go somewhere prior to this being free for 19 and under, and if we wanted to take the train or the bus, we're paying for 5 transit tickets, right? And then you start doing the math, and it's actually cheaper to drive and park, right? So if you want families to ride it, it should have some sort of family discount or make it free or cheap for kids, and like in a way that makes it easy. Like, even now when we go to the airport on the train, it could cost like $50 pretty easily because you're buying a ticket for like each person. And then you, again, like an Uber might be cheaper, which isn't what we really want. And we could do a better job with that sort of stuff.
Yep.
The other thing I say in this is we should increase frequency. Like, I know, like, there's a lot of research shows that women do more trip chaining. Like, they need to stop at multiple destinations along the way. And if you stop to do a quick thing and get out and have to wait a half an hour for the next bus or train, like, that just kills it all. Like, but if it's like 10 minutes, you can actually do it and it works.
And that's off-peak frequency specifically, which is hugely important.
Yeah.
So Braden, thank you for the question. See if we can squeeze in a couple more. I've got one that's kind of really more for me and one that's really more for you.
And I got one here too.
You got one here too? All
Yeah.
right. This one may be pretty quick, but Grace in New York City said that she hates the term, which was used recently in a Guardian article, car spreading, which is about the steady increasing of vehicle size. And she says there's got to be a better term, right? And yes, I would say car bloat. That's the one I think I came up with.
Did you coin that phrase?
I think I did. And I think it's good because it doesn't sort of sound overly snarky. It's simply descriptive. People get it.
I am with you in person and they have to introduce you, they always say that, and he coined the phrase car bloat.
I think I did until someone shows me I didn't. I really think I did.
No, but it's funny. That's part of your intro. Like that's your standard, whatever that paragraph is that gets sent out to everybody.
I'll take it. A lot of worse things have been said about me. But there's also, every now you see other phrases like autobesity, or I've heard like Greg Schill, a professor at Arizona State, has talked about the engorgement of the automobile. And I don't know. I just think car bloat kind of rolls off the tongue and is very... It sort of conveys negativity in a kind of like in a relatively unbiased way. So I'm biased myself because I came up with it, I think, but I still think it's the best one out there. Do you think there's something better?
Maybe like the rent is too damn high type one. Like the cars are too damn big.
The car is too damn big. Yeah. That's a good number of sentences, but a good number of words.
Yeah. No, I try to just, I think like just the images where you see like an old F-150 versus a new one, and you're like, oh, like that one could eat the other one. And it just, that sort of stuff I think is much more effective than, I think in our world, yes, car bloat works, but I think for people that have that car bias already, they probably don't even know what you mean by that. So I understand what you mean. It does get across it, but I think it gets across it to people that are already in this sphere.
Yeah, well, I feel like the question is like, how do you like expand the pie?
Yeah, right.
Just so people understand it. I think car bloat's going to be an easier time doing it than something like autobesity that just really conveys judgment. But I don't know. I hope it really catches on. There was just an article in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago about car bloat, which was great. It didn't really uncover, I think, anything super new. But it's great to just see the coverage.
There's some great graphics in that article.
That's right.
Like, yeah, everything else,
good graphics.
I think we already knew, but the graphics were really cool. And I think we need to, we talked about this before, getting the verbiage right and the nomenclature right for this sort of thing is so important because it makes a difference. Like people still think natural gas is like good for us because they stuck the word natural in front of it.
That's right.
There's lots of examples that are in a similar vein, but
there are a ton of examples, but you're completely right. So if you have a better term, that's fine. But for now, I'm sticking with car bloat. So let me try to get in this other question, which is really more for you, but it's a good one. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. This is from Matt, who is in Tacoma, Washington, where he is actually the co-chair of the Transportation Commission there.
Okay.
Did you see this question already?
I did not.
But I'm going to go a little quickly through it, but still it takes a little bit of explanation. He says in a lot of Tacoma on residential streets, we have uncontrolled intersections. That means no stop signs or yield signs, and drivers are supposed to figure out who should go first and slow down to look for pedestrians and other road users. And Matt says, I hear from people who are so frustrated and annoyed about this. They say that nowhere in a state like Massachusetts have I ever seen an intersection with no stop sign, which is an exact quote. And other places, they say these uncontrolled intersections are extremely rare. So my question, or he says, Matt's question for us is, are uncontrolled intersections actually that rare? And are they actually less safe? And this is really in your wheelhouse, so I want to kick it over to you.
As somebody from Massachusetts, that quote could be from me. Like growing up, I never, ever once saw a single intersection that didn't have stop signs or, even yield signs would be weird. Like you see some places that have like a four-way yield. Like to me, I find that a little bit weird. Like the stop sign thing, there are... As a professional,
Wes, is this a good thing? Or is it a safe thing?
It happens so rarely now that like the studies I know from like the 1950s showed that it isn't safe. Like those sort of intersections with nothing were less safe. That's honestly why we shifted towards cul-de-sacs. Like it was a
Yeah,
famous.
but you wrote a whole book saying those studies suck.
Right,
So,
and those studies
give us
do
knowledge,
suck,
Wes.
but
So what's real? What do we know now?
part of the reason I said they sucked is because nobody uses like a four-way intersection with nothing. But apparently in Tacoma they do. So it's still a thing. So I don't know. I think I'd have to look at
Sounds like
find
you need
out
to do a
some
research
more.
paper.
Yeah, I mean we have to find
Matt, I
some more
think you should-
examples of this. And
I think you got to get Wes to come out and do
You
a
know, so
study about
I
your
think-
uncontrolled intersections.
people would have to know it. I mean, because being from the places I'm from, if you're going through an intersection, there's no controls. I am assuming the other side streets have stop signs, right? So I'm driving through assuming that this other side streets have stop signs and mine doesn't. So I'm teaching one of my kids to drive right now, and as we get to every intersection, I'm telling her you need to try to figure out if this is a two-way or four-way stop. A zero-way stop is not something I've brought up yet because we don't have any of those around here. But I think it could lead to problems with people that don't really know the general vibe of it. It's like when Hans Monderman and a shared streets idea, like on the way into his town, it says like this is the last street sign you're going to see. Everything
That's what I
else
was
is
thinking.
sort of a free-for-all. So you have to
What
have
town was that? That was in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah, it was in the Netherlands. I can't remember offhand, but I think you'd have some sort of warning too. I feel like people would have to be forewarned that this is the way they're doing business there before coming through. Otherwise, it could lead to, people flying through both of them and having a big crash.
I mean, I'd be curious to see the study. But what was his name again? The guy you were just referencing? I know his study.
Hans Monderman.
Hans Monderman. Thank you. Yeah, he's the one who would famously walk backwards into the street.
There's some great YouTube videos of him giving a tour of some of his intersection redesigns that turned like a big traffic signal into a shared space, and he just walks out like he's Moses parting the Red Sea. Is just
with his eyes closed or walking backwards.
Yeah,
right?
just walking backwards. He's like, "Oh, don't worry, like I'll be okay." And like in the tour guide is
and the idea he's doing that, and there's no signage, no directions at all. It's sort of like safety through chaos for those.
Yeah,
who are
right,
not familiar,
exactly.
Right?
I kind of compare it to like an ice skating rink where everyone, sort of knows the general direction you need to go, but it seems crazy that all these people have these sharp blades and are flying around like this, but it is very safe. Like people know what to look out for, and they're making eye contact with other skaters, or in this case, road users. And, I think in theory, like the cars have to give way to the bicyclists, and the bicyclists have to give way to the pedestrians. There's kind of a hierarchy of priority, and the pedestrians have the right of way in these spaces. And it's not just no signage, but there's like no vertical curbs. There's like nothing. It's just this open-ended thing. And from the American mind, it seems insane, but when we look at the data, it's safer. So maybe the same thing can happen with what Matt in Tacoma is talking about, because if you had the same sort of thinking to it, but I think there needs to be a little bit more to it.
I think you should find a PhD student and have them hook up with Matt to do a study. That's what I think.
All right.
But that's cool. Thank you, Matt, for the question, and best of luck with your work in Tacoma. All right, you had a question before we drink something?
I do. So this is a sports-related question. This is from another
great.
Matt. This is from Matt in Virginia, and he's talking about it being NBA free agency season, where all the sports podcasts are talking about contracts, championships, roster fits. He wants to bring this into public transportation. So there are some players that have left certain cities to go to others. So like Kawhi Leonard went from LA to Toronto. John Morant went from Memphis to Portland. Jaylen Brown went from Boston to Philly. That one kind of hurts me. But he wants to know like which player is getting sort of the biggest upgrade in their day-to-day life from a public transportation or maybe a walkability standpoint to be able to live their life without a car. So I'll tell you the three he listed again. So Kawhi went from LA to Toronto. John Morant went from Memphis to Portland. Jaylen Brown from
Memphis to Portland?
Yeah, Boston to Philly. But there's also Giannis. He didn't list these, but there's a couple more. Giannis went from Milwaukee to Miami. LaMelo Ball went from Charlotte to Minnesota. And Julius Randle went from Minnesota to Brooklyn. So there's...
Well, Minnesota to Brooklyn is pretty damn good. New York is just so much better than every other city in the country. It's hard to top that.
Yeah.
Although, frankly, going from...
Memphis.
The one who went Memphis to...
Portland.
Yeah, that's pretty... Memphis is awful for transit. I've been there and it doesn't work.
I've not been to Memphis, but
yeah. Yeah, no, that's a pretty big one. But who is the one who went to Minnesota? Charlotte to Minnesota. Right?
LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, Charlotte.
He's the one that's
sprawled,
a notoriously bad driver. That he had those. You've probably seen this on like Urbanist Blue Sky, where he crashed his Hummer or whatever into like. It was going through the Charlotte intersection. He just like veered off into someone's car and had a head-on collision in his camouflage colored.
Yeah, I would say.
So maybe in Minnesota, he can actually take some transit and stay off the road.
I don't think he will. How often do NBA players take transit?
Well, LeBron famously used the bike to work in Miami. Same with
and
Clay.
Not only that, he actually gave a bunch of bikes to kids in Akron, Ohio, where he grew up.
And Klay Thompson used to do the same thing in Golden State.
That's biking. Who took transit?
I remember Jay-Z taking the train to his own concert in New York, but he's not a basketball
I don't know
player,
any
obviously.
NBA players who have taken. I'm not familiar with NBA players taking transit to their own game. I'd love to be told I'm wrong, but I don't remember. In fact, the only comparable thing I remember there was. God, do you remember Ken Rocker?
The pitcher for the Braves?
Yeah, who made some outlandishly offensive statement about like how like, you know, oh God, take this. The 7 train is full of, I think he used a derogatory term for gay people and something about minorities as well. It's like, oh, it's awful.
John
he
Rocker.
got pilloried.
Yeah, John Rocker, not Ken Rocker.
Sorry, John Rocker, excuse me. But remember that he got attacked by everyone, and then he said, "Okay, I'll take the 7 train next time I'm in New York." And the police were like, "Honestly, if he shows up in the subway, he's gonna get like attacked. So if the second he steps on it, that's an express train. Please don't do it." They actually had to like get him off. That's the only time I can remember. I'm like. See a professional sports player getting to a game or talking about doing so by transit. I hate to say.
Because you would imagine, because we talked about the World Cup transportation stuff in Europe versus the U.S. You could imagine soccer players in Europe going to their games via.
I bet it happens all the time in Europe. I don't know for sure, but it's. I mean, I play up the. I mean, I don't actually hate all sports the way I sound like I do on this podcast, but I follow some of it, and I really can't remember. And I'm sure someone's going to tell me I'm missing something, but I don't remember who is taking transit in Detroit or Boston or Seattle to get to a game.
I mean, the Boston Garden famously was over North Station. Like, so it would have been very easy. Like, it lets you off under the Garden. You could just go up the escalator and you're right there.
Well, did Larry Bird take it? I don't think he did.
He might have. I don't know.
Danny Ainge? I don't remember him hopping on the tee.
He's from Utah.
Robert Parrish? I don't think so.
Somebody did at some point, and maybe a reader can find some evidence of this, or a listener can find some
I
evidence.
would bet, if anyone, I bet Steve Kerr might have in Chicago when he played for the Bulls, just because Steve Kerr is such a progressive, thoughtful guy. I could see him doing it just because I'm biased in his favor. But other than that, no idea.
I mean, I think it is hard. I mean, they are very, very famous people going to a game in the arena where they're playing. So you think they could be harassed or bothered a lot.
Well, I mean, maybe they're taking. It could also be, to get back to the question at hand. It could be that these players will end up taking transit in their personal lives, not necessarily to get to work, but on the weekend.
But maybe they should. Maybe they should try it. Maybe we need some NBA players just to give it a shot. Like, try to take transit to. I mean, I know the Ball Arena where the Nuggets play is right here. Nikola Jokic could take the train right to the arena.
I could see Jokic doing that. Jokic seems like the kind of guy who'd be. He's down for whatever. He'll probably drink a beer illegally on it.
No one is going to mess with him on the train. Like, he'll be fine. I'm not worried about him being harassed.
If they tried to, he'll take it. The
guy's
huge.
He'll have his brothers with him, and they'll take care of business. So
exactly, he's Serbian, isn't he? Like, you don't mess with the Serbs. And I spent. Isn't he Serbian? Am I right?
I don't know. I'm confusing Luka right now because one's like Latvian, one's Serbian. I thought there's a lot of different countries. Lithuanian, one I think Serbian sounds right.
Not your favorite part of the world, is it?
Um,
There's too many countries over there in that part
there's a
of
lot of
Europe.
countries.
As like Wes furiously Googles to show that he does know sports as well as he says. I think
No, you're
Jokic
right. He
Serb.
is Serbian. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Fun fact: do you know I've been to Serbia 5 times?
Wow.
Back in the day, I did a whole graduate thesis paper about
Like
Serbia.
he's
20
big
years
into
ago.
horse racing. Did you? He goes back to Serbia and does like just hangs out with his
That,
horses all day long.
No, I just drank plum brandy and you know hung out with my friends in my 20s. I had a good time out there.
All right,
But that's for a story for another episode,
speaking of
maybe.
Plum brandy. Is that what you have for our rail drinks today?
No, time for rail drinks is always where we end an episode with a beverage because it's happy hour time. Although we got a little late this time, so it's past happy hour. I have to pour my drink. It's very hot, and it's July in Washington, D.C., so I thought having some Verdejo white wine from Spain would be appropriate to cool off, stay cool, and that's what I'm drinking. How about you?
Well, I mean, soccer is obviously all over the TV, so I got a soccer related drink, and my friends were trying to guess what it was. They did not guess it. So this is a Wrexham lager. So I don't know if you know the Welcome to Wrexham TV show that Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds own that team over there. And this is their lager that I don't actually think it comes from Wrexham in Wales. It's brewed and canned in Illinois. So,
well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Excellent marketing. Excellent marketing, guys. Well, good. Fair enough. Well,
right,
cheers.
well, cheers.
All right. And this brings us to the end of yet another episode of Look Both Ways. If you enjoyed the episode, please do tell a friend. We always look to meet new people and new people get involved. And our next episode will be a live stream on July 21st, which is a Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. You're very welcome to join us on YouTube Live. You can check out our YouTube page. We'll be posting it on Blue Sky as well. And this is a special episode. It is actually our 1-year anniversary together.
Yes, it is. So that means that this episode right now wraps up a full year of this.
It is amazing how time flies. It really is. So please join us for the 1-year anniversary. We're going to have a couple fun little things planned, I think. But we're looking forward to it. And if you want to get caught up, all of our episodes are on our website, lookbothwayspodcast.com. You can message us through the website. We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions for Mailbag, please do ask them. And with that, Wes, I will see you for our anniversary episode.
All right.